All right, so I took a few months off of the show and basically creating any type of content. And I'm not going to spend this entire episode explaining why, but I'll give you like a quick little rundown of what was going on. So I took a break because I was extremely confused, and I thought that I was confused because I was doing too many things. I had too many ideas, too many pivots I had done at that point. Still have a little bit due yet. And I also felt like I was getting too much feedback. I was producing more content, producing more stuff. And I thought that if I just stopped for a little bit, everything would become much more clearer to me. I've always been that person that believes in building in public and getting feedback and basically showing up online and asking people what they thought about my idea and whatever it is I'm building. And that was honestly the right thesis because this break was the wrong diagnosis. It was more like behind the scenes. I'm not really invested in it. And I just I just felt like I had to step back like for real. And I realized that the problem was never the doing, like the doing of work. It was just something underneath all of that. And I have been feeling this since my first internship, like this weird feeling that I could never really explain properly. And it just showed up everywhere after that, like every job, every project I took, even this podcast, the marketing podcast, the SSR. And like I wrote this working paper about dual audience in marketing. And I think AI has just made this feeling impossible to ignore for me. So I'm going to try and explain this to you. I think a lot of the words that we use for good work don't mean what they used to mean anymore. So when, let's say that someone's saying, I'm building a brand. Now, what does that actually mean now? When you hear someone say, I'm building a brand, sometimes it means I made a nice website. I created a visual identity. I post consistently. I look credible online. But where is the actual trust coming from? So many people are saying that I want to be authentic. I'm going to be my authentic self. And this one is incredibly weird because the second authenticity becomes something you have to announce, it starts to feel less authentic. Because now authenticity itself has become a strategy. And I think that's what bothered me the most because I'm in marketing and people talk a lot about being customer centric, being authentic, being trustworthy. And I'm not saying that people are pretending, but that sometimes the performance becomes so good that we stop knowing where the real thing is. And I started looking for people who had already thought about this. And I knew that I would never find a perfect answer, but I wanted someone to explain what I was feeling and kind of validate the emotion that I was going through. And I found these two philosophers. The first guy was Guy Debord. Decades before Instagram or LinkedIn or anything else existed, he talked about something called the spectacle. Basically, his idea was that at some point, society starts caring more about the image of something than actually the thing, like the actual thing. So the picture of the restaurant becomes more important than how the food tastes. The personal brand becomes more important than how the person is in the company or how they work or how they operate or how they interact with you. The announcement becomes more important than the work. And then there was Jean. I think his name was Jean. He took this even further. His idea was that eventually we create copies of things that are so convincing that we forget what the original even was. And as I was reading through this, I thought, okay, that's basically internet. Because think about LinkedIn. Someone can look like an expert, they can write posts, they can use the right words, they can sound confident, but underneath it, you don't always know, has this person experienced this? Did they actually build something? Have they actually talked to someone or like had a deep conversation with someone who's gone through this? Or did they just use AI to kind of simulate this experience? I mean, even simulating is fun because they're still trying to learn it, but like just asking AI, like if you were a 10-year, if you were a veteran in go to market, what kind of posts would you write? Just draft it for me. And then they don't even look at it. They don't even try to understand what it is or ask someone who's done that what it is. There's no learning there. So I was thinking about this, and then I also came across this idea in biology that weirdly also explained it better. It's called eosociality. It's mostly used when talking about insects like bees and ants, and basically like these colonies that work because everyone's actions are connected. If if B does something harmful, it affects the whole group. There's alignment, there's accountability. And I started wondering, So what happens when we become so disconnected from the people affected by our actions that we can just optimize for ourselves? That's where you get things like in business, you get things like fake reviews, fake urgency, fake expertise, fake everything. And I don't think it's because people are becoming like bad. Nobody's bad. I'm not talking about bad people here. I think it's because a lot of the natural pressure that keeps people honest has started to disappear. And think about this, right? If you had a small community and you had like 6 businesses there, you could not pretend to be an expert forever. You can't pretend that you are the best chef in in a small community, because people know your food tastes like shit. People know you, and your reputation is attached to that reality. But online, you can create a version of yourself that exists completely separate from your actual life. And then AI enters the picture. And this is the part that honestly like fascinates me, because AI did not create this problem. We've had this in multiple ways before AI even came to existence. I just think that AI removed that friction. And before that, creating the appearance of expertise took time. If you really wanted to sound like a CEO, you had to like go to all these like consulting, coaching classes, and like really had to like coach yourself into becoming an executive. Like there are so many people even now that are coaching people to be executives. But a lot of people use AI right now for that. Creating the appearance of a successful company will take resources. Like you really do have to pay PR, you have to pay for that and this. But now it's like, I'm just going to vibe code this and I'm going to do that. And then bam, I can call myself a software engineer. Creating the appearance of relationships took effort. And now, like if you're on a dating app and you want to really like impress someone with a line, you really had to take the time to like go through their profile and understand that. But now it's like screenshot their entire dating profile. I think you can do that. I don't know, but you can send it to AI and then ask it for like, hey, tell me what I can say to impress this person. Or you can like screen share with your friends. That's what my friends do with me. Now, a lot of those signals can be generated instantly. Now, the question is not, how do I stand out? I think I have asked myself that question a bunch of times, but I think it's the wrong one to be asking. And I think the deeper question is, what do I have that someone with zero connection to reality couldn't easily create? So what do I have that requires me to actually be there, to actually care, to actually have something at stake? Because I think that's just where trust is going. It's not going to be more about who can produce more, who can be louder, who can talk about something repeatedly, but in having something real behind what you produce. And I honestly don't have the full answer for it yet. Honestly, that's why I'm coming back to this podcast to kind of work through my thoughts here, but also redefining my other podcasts to showcase that. Because I'll tell you, like, I don't think I can figure this out by sitting alone and making another framework. I do want to talk to folks that are like doing this work, founders, CEOs, CMOs, CTOs, marketers, creators who've built things that have lasted and people who build things that collapsed. And basically ask them, where do you think this real thing exists? Where can people tell the difference between something that is real and fake? Because I think that that's a question all of us are going to have to answer at some point. And, this could be for a creator before you post something, how to not sound like AI, how to not sound like you're outsourcing your thought process to AI and actually producing something that you believe in before you send in a pitch to an investor, before you publish, before you even like post something like that. It's something so simple. I think the one question that we need to be asking ourselves is like, what is here that couldn't be created by someone who has zero stake in whether it's true? And I don't think we should be using this as a way to judge ourselves or as a way to say that everything online is fake. We don't have to be a Debbie Downer about AI. I just think that we do need a filter, because if the answer is nothing, if the answer is something real, then you'll probably feel the difference. So anyways, that's what I've been thinking about. And if you've ever felt this like weird gap between, I'm not really sure, I want to hear about it. If a brand, it could be anything, right? It could be a brand, it could be a person, it could be a career, it could be a sense of reality that you're like, I don't think this is reality. It seems like performance. So I think that is a conversation that I want to be having. So yeah, that's what I want to share. With that, I'll see you in the next one.